Welcome to Odd Reality Radio. I'm Ty West.
And I'm Joshua Ray.
Odd Reality Radio is a show designed to generate thought through entertainment. On today's episode, we're changing things up a little bit and we're bypassing the news. Simply because we have such an amazing topic. This week, we discuss the life of a man whose influence is still found nearly everywhere on Earth. A unique, one-of-a-kind man, a humanitarian, an inventor, a futurist. Today, we discuss Nikola Tesla. And in addition, we'd like to wish him a happy 158th birthday from all of us here at the Odd Reality Radio crew. Stick around.
For those of you who may not know who Tesla is, just who is Nikola Tesla? I've heard a man way ahead of his time, the father of electricity, a visionary, but much more than the word implies. He seemed to have an almost superhuman way of envisioning his ideas entirely, that seemed to cause him a little trouble at the patent office, due to his ideas only being in his head. Regardless of where those ideas were, on paper or in his head, they worked exactly as he imagined. From Junebug-powered motors to massive Niagara Fall generators, and seemingly everything in between, with over 300 patents in his lifetime. I'd have to say the inventions that never came to fruition would be my favorite ideas of his. Those ideas being wireless power transmission and highly debated free power, and an endless source. So the question is, what happened to those ideas? And what reasons are there for a genius like Tesla to be kept out of the history books? Instinct is something that transcends knowledge. We have undoubtedly certain finer fibers that enable us to see truth when logical deduction or any other willful efforts of the brain is futile. Tesla.
Today we're going to talk about the life of Tesla. And to get a little background on the type of person that he was, we'll start at the very beginning. He was born in 1856 during a fierce electrical storm at midnight between July 9th and 10th. And he was always an inventive person from the very beginning. He created a Junebug-powered motor, and that was before he was even 10 years old. You know, before I was 10, I just mostly tore my dad's shit apart. So
yeah, there's also stories that he came up with the idea for Niagara Falls at that same age.
That's right.
That was
in the
his
water dream.
With a stick and a string or something.
Well, when he was 17, he ended up contracting cholera and ended up being bedridden for about 9 months, where he nearly died several times during this before fully recovering. And the following year, he ends up evading the draft by the Austrian Empire by running away to the mountains of what is modern-day Lika, Croatia. And during this experience, Tesla immersed himself in the whole mountain man lifestyle and recounts that this experience helped him grow both physically and mentally.
That's really interesting. I never heard of the wilderness man Tesla.
You know,
that's
I
a
wonder
cool story.
If they have an action figure version of this. If they don't, that's
like a Daniel
we gotta
Boone
tap that market.
Kind of outfit.
Hell yeah. So, in 1882, when he was just 25 years old, he began working as an electrical engineer for the Continental Edison Company in France. And by June of 1884, he decided to up and move to the United States in order to work with the best in the electricity business. And at the time, it was the mighty Thomas Edison.
Bullshit, don't believe it.
And Edison, he ended up interviewing with Edison. It didn't go very well, apparently, and he still got a position there. And after months of working on a project that Edison basically dangled the carrot in front of him with was he promised him $55,000 for an improved version of the direct current generator, which $55,000 for somebody as stingy as Edison was not, a very light promise when it came to money, especially for somebody like him. But, it was a couple of months that went by, and then Tesla ended up finishing the project and brought the improved project.
He improved a bunch of his machines.
And Edison says, Tesla, you don't understand our American sense of humor.
It's all a joke.
Yeah.
It's pathetic.
Well, Tesla didn't find it to be very funny, and he said, to hell with this. And he walked out. And lucky for us, he did that, because...
Yeah, it seems more like Edison was just intimidated by Tesla.
Absolutely.
And he had him doing remedial tasks, keeping him under his thumb so that he wouldn't be a threat. That's more likely that's the way I see it. Because probably during the interview, he's like, holy crap, this dude's a genius. And he's like, okay, I'll hire you, but I'm just going to keep you under my thumb.
Probably, half his age or whatever at the time, too. Mm-hmm. So that's got to be an intimidation in itself.
Well, then again, he probably realized he was a genius, and Edison being basically a liar and a thief, he probably just wanted to have this guy come in and create something that Edison could steal from him
and benefit from,
in Edison fashion, and then make it look like he's such a great inventor. I mean, what did he have? Some kind of chair that couldn't fall over or something? Like a little hinge on the back that was like Edison's invention before that? Like, you could lean back on the stupid chair.
The kickstand.
Yeah, I mean, that's his ideas.
The fifth leg.
That's the kind of ideas you get from Edison, in my opinion.
But before, the big DC generators and everything, yeah.
Well, those are combined efforts from all the other ideas that he stole from other people that worked for him.
That's a good point. And Tesla's ideas were all in his head.
They were his ideas.
And they were ideas that, some people have said that he basically had manifestations of these ideas, these concepts in his reality, and he would go up and touch them, and they would just disintegrate. I heard that the other day, and that was that. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. Somebody with the mind as big and inventive as Tesla's, I wouldn't put it past him.
Well, yeah, and even the stories of his youth where his mother, she was uneducated farmer, and she wrote and recited poetry, and she could recite these long poems from just her, off the top of her head, and he attributed his ability to, his photographic memory to his mother, and doing those same things throughout his life, repeating poems and memorizing things, and it just was really easy for him. So then, like, you could put a massive image in there, I'm sure, and it would be easy for him to kind of like see it all.
Well, another aspect of Tesla that lends to the poetic side was the way that he seemed to name things. I mean, his perception of things. That, shortly after he left the Edison company in 1888, he finally got some notoriety and some credit for his AC dynamo electric machine. And we're all familiar with an AC generator.
Yes.
It's the same thing. But Tesla's version, the name is a hell of a lot more poetic. It's a lot more flashy. And
I wonder if it was the language of the time or if it was just the way he worded things.
I think it would be incredible if we could get our hands on some of the poetry that supposedly he wrote.
Yeah,
because I would love to hear some of his poetic ideas, because we got some of the mechanical inventions. We got some of the really tangible things, but the poetry is something. Being a poet myself,
what did we really get? I mean, yeah, the poetry is awesome, and I heard that he wouldn't release it to anybody, but as far as his technology and what we got, it really seems we got like the basics, the simple little ideas of Tesla's.
Well, as far as what we have, they may have been simple at the time, but we're still using them today.
No, I understand that. I'm saying they're simple in comparison to all of his other ideas, and the ones like free power,
right?
Telegeodynamics,
right?
Oscillate, or the resonant energy, the resonant frequency, and those technologies. Those technologies are still something that would be like magic to us if somebody were to come out and show us, say, the telegeodynamic machine, and watch, with this oscillator I can bring down this building without any TNT, anything like that, and just demo this thing.
Right.
That's crazy technology that would seem like magic to us, or wireless transmissions of power. Why does that seem so far-fetched nowadays when we have Wi-Fi?
Well, because we've been ingrained to believe that this dependency is never going to be lifted on, these fossil fuels and this, nuclear energy and all this nastiness that we could have cleared up with a lot of his inventions.
True. And I think that it's important to note the influence at the time and the reasons I believe that we don't have this technology, and left to these people, we never will.
Right.
Right. And so you have to look at the time frame in which Tesla came up, like early 1900s. The energy game was being dominated by Rockefeller.
Right.
Morgan's looking to tap into that and have the same recognition as Rockefeller, the way his name is synonymous with oil. He wanted his name, Morgan wanted his name to be the same way with electricity, and they wanted to take over the energy market. That's why he invested in Edison against his dad's J.P. Morgan, against his dad's better advice, really. Right. Against his dad's advice, he invested in Edison. And this is mostly probably due to the fact that his dad passed away and he tripled his wealth. And then he says, nobody's really going to tell me what to do anymore. I'm going to invest in this. But the fact is his dad thought it was a fad, and he thought it was just going to die out and fade away.
Well, it might.
But the reality is quite the opposite,
Well, just to touch on a few of these inventions that we've been talking about, a few of the things that we've mentioned, the telegeodynamics and, the oscillator. Aside from those things, he invented the Tesla coil, which forms of the Tesla coils are still being used in electromagnetic therapy. Radio, which Marconi was initially credited for. Again, one of those, the
big money
powered through.
Carnegie was his backer,
right? And he basically and there was a confrontation for a little while in between 1903 and 1904, and Tesla was initially given credit for the radio, and then in 1904 it was given to Marconi as well as the Nobel Prize.
And I think that a lot of the reason that Marconi was awarded with the radio, or the Nobel Prize for the radio, is because Morgan at that time donated $150,000, or funded, I should say, to Tesla to build the Wardenclyffe Tower.
Right.
And Tesla tells Morgan it's going to be a transatlantic communication device. And so he completes this Wardenclyffe Tower and shows Morgan, okay, this is really what it is. It generates power telegeodynamically. Figure it out, I don't know. And transmits this power wirelessly. I don't know what the lengths of how far it could transmit this power, but this is what he created. And the report, and Morgan says to Tesla, how do I put a meter on it? How do I sell this to the public? And Tesla's just like, you don't. It's free. You give it to humanity. You make the world a better place.
Well,
Morgan says,
sit well with him.
That's exactly the problem, is he wants to have that Rockefeller status and own the energy biz through electricity. And so he says, well, I can't have that. And he goes to the media and he tells the media, well, Tesla basically wasted $150,000 trying to create this transatlantic communication device. Meanwhile, Marconi created it, and it's more affordable and easier to use. So that's why they gave him the patent. Not only is it's twofold. So you take away credibility.
Absolutely.
From Tesla. It makes him look like he's a joke.
From the man who invented neon lighting, remote control, the modern electric motor.
And you keep that idea suppressed.
Right.
So now you don't have free power. This is big money manipulating who gets credit for what ideas. And if he would have got credit for the radio at that time, which is the same time frame when he was building the Wardenclyffe Tower, he might have been able to get somebody else to fund his project. But considering he was a nobody with no real credit other than, basic stuff, I guess. I mean, he was a rock star in his time.
Yeah.
But also being that Morgan and his massive Wall Street influence
They were suppressing his credibility.
Well, they're blacklisting him from any other further funding. So he was just basically put up against giants. How do you go against billionaires in the 1900s?
Well, that's something that he was willing to do for so long, and I think that between the Wardenclyffe Tower and his idea for free energy, I think that the pressure from that big business, I think that kind of broke his spirit somewhat to the point where he kind of just shut himself away.
I think so too, but I don't think he never gave up, not at that point.
No.
I mean, later on, I kind of see a point where he just said, I can't compete with these guys. There's nothing I can do. They own the influence around the world with all the money that I need to generate these ideas. Nobody's going to give it to me because these guys are basically saying no, But after the Wardenclyffe Tower, I believe, is when he started working for Westinghouse. I don't know. It could have been before, after, during.
It was before, actually.
Was it?
Yeah.
So then, I'm just trying to figure out how the timelines work out with Westinghouse and him working with Edison. And
was roughly 1910 or 1911 to the 1920s, in between there.
No, I'm pretty sure in 1910 he would have had that thing completed, and we would have had free wireless power, because or even like 1908. It was early 1900s.
Wardenclyffe years were 1900 to 1917. So I was off by 10 years. His Wardenclyffe years were 1900 to 1917.
And radio was awarded, or the Nobel Prize for the invention of the radio was awarded when? Do you know?
1904.
See, so that's the same time frame from when he was working on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the credibility was shot there. And that was shortly after what you had mentioned with... what won them the bid for the Niagara Falls was they outbid Thomas Edison's company at the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago with wireless lighting.
Makes it easy to underbid your competition if you're eliminating a lot of the wiring.
The heavy wiring,
and
expensive.
Another reason that Tesla's idea didn't go anywhere is Morgan owned steel companies and sold wire to Edison to supply in between each substation and to the houses and everything. All this wire has to be sold, so that's a conflict of interest if you start distributing power wirelessly.
Absolutely.
It's...
Somebody forgot to turn their phone off. We won't say who, even though it's me.
I think the coolest thing about Tesla and what he did as far as the World's Fair and illuminating the World's Fair wirelessly in 1893.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of that wireless power illumination going on now.
And it's funny that you 2014. You get Edison. Oh, he created the light bulb. Wow, really? Okay, but you have to plug it in. You have to screw. Tesla had halogen bulbs of some sort that he could just pick up and carry through his lab with no wire attached to it. He could illuminate and just bring the light with him.
Something that's related to the World's Fair and the lighting was Edison refused to sell his light bulbs and any kind of his light bulb to light that World's Fair. So Tesla and Westinghouse were required to invent within months and produce light bulbs for this fair. And
I'm sure that was easy for Tesla.
It was.
I think he already had them.
Cotton candy for him.
I don't know what the time frame is, but yeah, it was probably really easy for him. But I know he did have, well, at least there's stories of him having wireless light in his labs, and that's according to like Mark Twain and those.
Well, Mark Twain, he did have some celebrity friends. Like you said, he was a bit of a rock star, and Mark Twain was one that would come and basically be a willing guinea pig in all of Tesla's late night experiments. And what I heard was they basically became lifelong friends after Tesla had
cured his constipation.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just say it.
Well, I was trying to come up with some sort of PC version to say it, but
he enabled Mark Twain to shit.
Yeah, he rocked a deuce.
There you go.
For Twain. Okay. We got that out.
He rocked a deuce for Twain. No, but yeah, he was one of his, like, I don't know what the machine was, oscillating, vibrating, telegeodynamic type machine that was fun to be on, apparently, and it stimulated bowel movement. So Mark Twain found out about that shortly after he got on, I'm sure.
Yeah. And other than that, they experimented with Tesla's X-ray guns, too, where they would line right behind them with undeveloped film, unexposed film, and they would just shoot each other with this X-ray gun. And there's still actual prints. There's still the actual film of Tesla's hand and Mark Twain's head or skull, I guess it would be. But, you know, it was said that during his cholera experience, he read a lot of Mark Twain and felt inspired to get healthy because of that. So I think that's a pretty awesome connection for him to actually meet somebody he idolized and benefited from their works at one time. So, you know,
yeah, it is cool. They had there's a story of him like snapping his fingers and creating some kind of ball or fire of electricity or something that he could just hold in his hand.
Incredible story.
Pass across his body and then
pass it to other people too?
I believe so. I mean, in the book, that's the way it seems, is that it was just some magic.
Just ball lightning almost is what some people say.
That's probably what it was. You know, he probably had a way to create that, and he knew what was dangerous and what wasn't. You know, like high voltage is apparently less lethal than low voltage.
Yeah.
Because he did this a display for
one of his late night.
Well, it was somebody who was writing an article or something about
the journalist.
Yeah, the journalist.
Local paper. I remember that one.
And so he did it showed him that 100 volts, I believe, or 100 watts or something like that. I'm probably messing it up, but kills an animal, a small animal, and then he turns it up like 10 times that amount to like 1,000 volts, and he's on there, and it's just passing through his body and or on his body is the way he described it.
Right.
Because how can you get on there when the lower volts just killed this animal, and you're doing it with 10 times the amount that killed the animal? How is that possible? And he said that apparently high volts, well, he didn't say apparently, but high voltage goes across that outer layer of your skin, and I guess low voltage penetrates the body.
It sounds to me like a frequency-based thing. It sounds to me like the higher volts, maybe it's a completely different frequency, and that's why it wouldn't penetrate. And he, you know, like we talked about, he basically could just manifest these inventions and ideas in reality. So,
you know, like I was saying earlier, the things that he did back then, we would still look at like magic. Like if you had David Blaine get on there and do that, everybody would be like, oh my God, David Blaine's just incredible. Did you see it? You know, I mean, but he doesn't understand it. Tesla does, and that's the important part. Yes. He knows what he's doing here.
And that's one thing with the oscillator, the resonant frequency oscillators. There's people that are trying to recreate it. I don't know anybody that's successfully done to the degree that he has, but you know,
maybe the government with HARP. I don't know.
That's a good point. You know, and HARP. HARP has been quoted as Tesla's howitzer, which is not a real pretty thing to be considered. And HARP, for those of you that don't know, it's the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. And that is basically, it's just a program that, the Ionosphere Research Program that is jointly funded by the U.S. Air Force, the U.S. Navy, the University of Alaska, and the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency, or DARPA.
Scary.
And I agree. What does DARPA have to do with it?
Makes it sound like it's a weapon.
Ah.
Oh. That could be it.
Well, recent claims suggest that that Alaskan location is going to be shut down, which doesn't at all mean that HARP is through. In fact, there's another new location, aside from the other ones around the globe, that is going in Puerto Rico soon. So,
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to why are they shutting one down and building another one? And they're really not shutting it down. They're trying to get the University over in Alaska to basically take care of it, maintain it, and continue to use control. Yeah. And I highly doubt it'll get shut down. What it really is, we'll probably never know. There's a lot of people who say that, or articles and things you can read, that it's modifying the weather.
Right.
And that it also is a weapon. And if you can use the weather in what way you want, then I guess that is a weapon.
Yeah.
So you can create a tsunami or a hurricane in certain areas and just Katrina that shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, the Haiti earthquake, didn't their president basically just say that it was HARP generated? I think there's a quote where he essentially says that he blames this on HARP's technology.
Well, yeah, I haven't read that, but I do know that the Mexican government believes that the U.S. government sank or made one of their islands disappear. And along with it, the claim that Mexico had for the hydrocarbons in that area. So they were basically going to mine and make some money on this island. And U.S.'s response to that is no island, no claim. Well, this island disappeared overnight. It was there one day and gone the next. And then the government says, well, it's rising sea levels, and that's what caused it. And this was in 2009. And they're saying there is no noticeable or measurable rising of the sea level in this year, in 2009. So I think that's bullshit.
Well,
right?
For something that giant to just disappear, to just be swallowed up, it would take a lot of pressure, or telegeodynamics. Yeah,
and the way that Tesla described it, it breaks down the molecules so they don't bond together anymore. So the frequency, basically, if you look at it like a microwave or something like that, where it just vibrates these things violently, but they're not heating up, they're breaking apart. It's I can't explain it. I'm not a physicist, but this is just, it makes sense to me. If you vibrate something enough, it falls down. Earthquakes collapse houses.
Absolutely.
It's the way shit happens. But this is on like a more tuned in, dialed in, exact frequency to hit this exact resonant energy and target only that. So it's pinpoint.
Well, Tesla, toward the end of his, his media career, because he did become a showman, basically, just to show off his inventions and his creations and things. And after the greater powers bastardized all his work, he ended up developing what he named, bluntly, the death ray.
No, he named it the peace ray. Morgan turned that title into the death ray.
Okay.
Because he used it like this. The peace ray is a way to deter. So it's
right, that's right. Because he said that the reason that it was a peace ray is because if you gave one to every country, it would
deter war.
It would deter all war.
What are you going to do? You're going to march your army in front of mine and my army in front of yours, and then we're just going to blast each other with the peace ray, and then both armies are disappeared. Or is it the first one who gets the shot off wins? I don't know. Maybe they just do one of those. What do they call them in the Old West, where you walk around?
Oh,
you walk
just a
away?
draw?
Yeah, is that what they call it?
Yeah, just an old school draw.
Old school draw, man. That's the next
shootout.
That would have been the
high noon at Death Ray Town.
Death Ray.
The interesting thing about that is that when he went and actually displayed the Death Ray, he went out and turned the thing on, and it generated this really low violet light that just shot off into the distance. And, all the reporters and all the people that had flocked to see this death ray work, or this big peace ray work, it basically didn't do anything for quite some time, and then a bird flew into the beam and died. And everybody was like, well, that's it? and they basically got jaded on waiting any longer, and they all left. But before they left, Tesla basically tried to get these people to understand that talk to Perry. There's a man named Perry that's in Antarctica on an expedition, and ask him what he saw. And he assumed that he was shooting to Antarctica, but there are some other reports that we found that basically say, if you've ever heard of the UFO meteorite in Tunguska, well, the trajectory, it lines up.
As a crow flies.
It lines up. I think that the likelihood and the timeline and the amount of damage
and the radiation,
I think it all really, really ends up being rather
I can't remember.
tangible.
Was it 1,000 times the Hiroshima atom bomb or 100? It's substantially larger than the Hiroshima atom bomb. And that radiation was found. I don't know if radiation's found at meteorite impact sites.
Right.
I have no idea. My instinct says no.
I think it would be dependent on where the meteorite came from.
True.
So,
but yeah, I have no idea.
But the thing about Tunguska is they never found any meteorite.
Yeah, meteorite. Yeah, they never found any kind of debris, nothing like that. It's true, and so that's the one that it must be UFOs.
Right.
So,
again, it's just more bastardization. Let's just throw a blanket over it and call it something silly, so people just put it on that shelf of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Which is too bad, because Tesla was a futurist, an inventor, a scientist, an engineer. I mean, there wasn't a humanitarian, really. That's the kind of person that he was. He was all about, like we said, free energy for everyone. He wanted to better everything. There was even reports that I read that he wanted to illuminate the ocean. He wanted to light up the ocean. I mean, that's really creative and poetic in itself. And he had...
Didn't he have some other idea
big
of like
hopes and aspirations,
a ring around the planet?
Yeah, he had a basically so we could travel from one portion of the globe directly the opposite 180 in hours or whatever it would be.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that if he had more backing, I think that he could have done a lot of this stuff.
And that's exactly the point. And I think that's the biggest part that's missing from the story of Tesla is the influence and the backing, the money, the people that ran the show at the time.
Yeah.
The Carnegies, the Rockefellers, and the Morgans, and the Rothschilds, the ones that are robbing the country blind with interest rates and ridiculous prices for energy. What? You found it in the ground on the planet that we all live on? Is that what you're telling me? You found this stuff in the ground on the planet that we all live on, but you get it. It's yours. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes total sense. I don't know why I was thinking what I was thinking. So you got him who's controlling the energy, Rockefeller, with the oil, and Rothschild's been just controlling everything since things began. And then the Morgans and Carnegie. Well, Rothschild, Morgan, and Carnegie, they weren't necessarily friends, but they did put aside their differences in, I think it was 1896-ish. I think it was 96. And they bought President William McKinley. They used all their money and their influence. Well, not all their money, just a basic tiny little chunk of it to outspend the competition 5-1 and buy an election. These are the same things that we see going on today.
Yeah.
Now, if they did this way back then, why would you change that idea? Why would you say,
well, if it works for that power structure, then don't change it.
And then if you look at those same people that are in that game back then, they're still in the game now, and they're bigger and better. You got Goldman Sachs that transfer all of our money to these greedy cunts. I can't begin to even describe how that all went down, but I know where the money went.
Yeah.
And I know these guys aren't the government, and I don't know why they're getting taxpayer money. These are the ones that influence everything, our ideas, our culture, they own the healthcare businesses. They own everything.
They own the world, essentially. Well, these elite, they banded together to discredit him and his work, and in my opinion, it's because of his character, which is still happening today, like you said. But with the addition of the internet, I think that the underdogs around the world have more and more of a fighting chance every day. And I feel like people haven't stopped being amazing and capable. I feel like maybe they've just forgotten how capable and how amazing because of the suppression through our culture and the programming. I feel like
distraction.
We live in
everything's
a
massive distraction.
But, there's potentially 1,000 to 10 or 100,000 Teslas out there in the world right now, and the majority of them just don't have faith in themselves based on the structure of our stupid culture.
Well, if you look at, like, even back in history, like Da Vinci times, they were still suppressing ideas back then. You were killed if you, I don't know, if the world was round, you're a dead man.
Absolutely.
And the ideas, and they don't want people to latch onto these ideas, and especially things like Tesla, free power, because if you give people free things, they become free people. And you're not restricted with all these bills and gas bill.
Yeah.
Just all numerous things that the only other thing you would have to pay for is food.
Yeah. Good point. But then again, if we learned to grow and we learned trade, then, there's just more and more that we could be doing to be a better, and again, it all just is, if you look at it, it's all going to be, the better the community, the better the product. So
I just think it's pretty fucking obvious. They bastardized this guy because he created something great and he wanted to give it to the world, and he wanted to make the world a little better for all of us. And
absolutely.
He wanted to give it to us for free. And these guys, big money oil, well, you're trying to take my oil energy and my money, and you're trying to, no, that's not going to happen. And then Morgan's like, no, we're going to do the electricity thing. We're going to sell it, though. So, win-win. You'll get your name in the history books right after you die.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
And that was the unfortunate thing.
And that's the other thing is, how can a guy like that be left out of the history books with basically missiles? He's responsible for the guidance systems and radar and just so many things, and that they don't want to give credit to this guy.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because of the free power thing. That's the only thing that makes sense to me, is why he's been withheld. And because if you learn one thing about this guy and you say, wow, that was amazing.
Right.
What else did he come up with? Well,
I think that it's his character too. I don't think that they want people learning and being inspired by somebody who just was so giving of himself, so selfless. I don't think that they want somebody that smart, inventive, and heroic, in my eyes, to be put on any sort of pedestal. So that's why, but I think that with our culture, and I think since like the 90s, I really do think that there's been a resurgence of Tesla and an interest in Tesla. And, with things like Tesla Motors, and there was a couple of news stories that I saw that they found an abandoned Tesla lab, one of his free energy things, that in Russia. And then there's 2 other Russian scientists that are now trying to build something very similar to that. So his impact has been left here, and I do too. I hope they do succeed as well. And I feel like that the man that Tesla was is finally being remembered for the greatness that he brought us and everything that he provided us.
Well, what Tesla means to me, and what not only all the technology and innovation that he brought to people and into this world, but also I think it's important to realize that even though you can make the largest impact on this planet since the fucking asteroids erased the dinosaurs, you can still be easily dismissed. It honestly saddens me that this could happen to such a great man who really wanted to give to the world and make life a little bit better for all of us. This guy was just incredible and marginalized by history books and erased nearly. I feel bad that we have to play this game of telephone that unfortunately is about 100 years old plus. Yeah. And I think that this quote can sum it up nicely. Let the future tell the truth, and evaluate each one according to his works and accomplishments. The present is theirs. The future for which I have really worked is mine. Tesla.
I think that puts a nice bow on the Tesla episode. Tesla is somebody that definitely needs to be remembered in history as the humanitarian and the positive entity that he was. And I think that people need to take his example and continue to just, push that envelope. I think Tesla Motors, with them, releasing all their patents on their motors, that's an awesome step in the right direction.
It's a beautiful thing, for sure.
Absolutely. Let's continue to do that kind of thing, and let's continue to investigate life through the lens of possibility. I'm Ty West.
And I'm Joshua Ray.
Take care.
Peace.